So it has been made official today. Nico Harrison is officially fired from the Dallas Mavericks. To be honest, I don't think anyone in the world is surprised because this was a long time coming. At least that's what it's felt like. I will say though, I'm a little bit surprised by the timing. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't do this at the end of last year or literally any time before that, right after the Luka trade, but it's whatever. Now, I'm not even a Dallas Mavericks fan, but even I'm happy that this man has been fired. Like, I know as a Suns fan, I should hate Luka. I should hate the Mavs because they literally cucked us on national television in one of the most heartbreaking moments I've ever seen. You have to feel bad for Luka, a guy who didn't even want to be traded. And you have to feel bad for Mavericks fans because they definitely didn't see this coming, and why should they? Now, before we even talk about the Luka trade, I want to talk about Nico Harrison and kind of the history real quick so you guys can understand how much of a generational fuck up the past 5 years have been. So really quick, before I even tell you about Nico Harrison, I just want to ask you guys a quick question. If you were building the perfect NBA GM, how would you build him? Like, what would you want him to have done before he became a GM? Maybe be a former player, a guy that played for 10 to 15 years, maybe a guy who was a head coach, or just someone that has overall been around basketball for over 20 plus years? Nah. See, that's where you're wrong. I'm going to pitch you guys the perfect NBA GM. How about a guy that got undrafted in the NBA and played for about 6 seasons, but he played overseas basketball in Belgium and was hired in 2002 at Nike as a vice president of North American basketball operations? Sounds like a real catch, right, guys? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's Nico Harrison. Technically, he was a former player, but it doesn't look like he played in the NBA. And again, he played in fucking Belgium. Like, listen, no disrespect to people who play in Belgium, who play overseas basketball. Again, I think that's a cool thing to do. But if you're trying to be the GM of an NBA team, I just don't think that's a good fit, especially when you ended up spending the next 20 years of your life being a guy in basketball operations. Now, I will say I do have to give some props to Nico Harrison. During his 19 years at Nike, he had a pretty solid run. He was able to build connections with guys like Michael Finley, Dirk Nowitzki, Tim Duncan, and Jermaine O'Neal. Notice how 2 of those guys are former Mavericks players. But also, he did get to work with guys like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant because, he was doing a lot of national marketing stuff. But here's the thing about Nico Harrison's Nike tenure that Mark Cuban probably should have saw as a red flag. See, Nico Harrison was apparently known as the player whisperer, a guy that could really make good connections with players, which I find that very hard to fucking believe because of a story that I found in 2013 that I remember very vividly from a Jimmy High Roller video, and I couldn't believe that all these years later I found out it was Nico Harrison behind this. So basically, back in 2013, Stephen Curry was trying to figure out which shoe company he wanted to sign to, and 2 of the big players were Nike and Under Armour. Now, he decided to go to Nike's presentation, and the whole presentation was a fucking mess. For one, they misspelled his name, and number 2, they had a slide where it showed Kevin Durant instead of Stephen Curry. Basically, they were being lazy with the presentation, and they just kind of half-assed it. Oh, I get it, Stephen Curry wasn't the player that he is today, but still, that's extremely fucked up, especially if you're the player whisperer. Like, you think you would care more about these things. Now, obviously, Stephen Curry would not sign with Nike, and he would go to Under Armour, and of course, the rest is history. But still, I don't know how Mark Cuban didn't see this and be like, that's a royal fuck up. But listen, this is not the only time that Nico Harrison would fuck up a very big move. Now, flash forward to 2021, he would be appointed as the general manager of basketball operations for the Dallas Mavericks, which of course would make him the GM. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. This was also around the same time that Jason Kidd was hired as the head coach. Now, listen, in fairness, in the first 3 seasons of his run, he actually did pretty well. Obviously, the Mavericks themselves as a team did well. They made the Western Conference Finals a couple times. They obviously did that thing to the Suns. I don't even know what to call it because if I call it what I want to call it, then my channel's probably going to get banned. But yeah, the Mavericks were a pretty solid team. They even made some solid moves, but they also had some royal fuck ups like I was talking about earlier. For example, I believe it was in 2022, Jalen Brunson had a chance to re-sign with the Dallas Mavericks. Now, these negotiations were going on for a while, and Dallas ultimately did not want to give Brunson an extension that was meeting Brunson's taste. According to what I've seen, I believe it was Brunson's dad that said that Jalen would have re-signed for 4 years, $55 million. Now, keep in mind, this is before Jalen Brunson was the all-star that he is today. Like, Brunson now is a top 5 point guard in the NBA. He's an all-star. He's one of the best in the game. However, at the time, he was just simply a role player, a great role player, but just a role player, a sixth man even. Like, he just had his playoff run and he wasn't there yet, but the potential was slowly showing. And for some reason, Nico Harrison did not want to extend him. So Brunson would leave, he would go to New York, and the rest is history. But don't worry, because Nico Harrison did make a solid move in getting Kyrie Irving, which I mean, I don't think you can personally blame him for making this move. It was solid and it did work out pretty well. Unfortunately though, Kyrie got injured and the Mavericks are just kind of not put well together right now. So yeah, it just hasn't been working out. But I mean, listen, there is still potential for this trade to work out. However, with what I'm about to tell you about next, it's probably not going to look good regardless, because it was in February, right before the trade deadline, at around like midnight or like 1, 2, 3 in the morning, something like that. This man, Nico Harrison, decided to trade Luka Doncic out of nowhere. Now, this had obviously a lot of implications because Luka was not just the best player on the Mavericks. He wasn't just arguably the best player in the NBA. He was definitely top 3 for sure. But you traded a guy that was basically a key to the city. Luka was a huge part of Dallas sports, and you trading him was basically trading the soul of the entire city. Like, do you understand the type of world that we live in? And I'm not even just talking about NBA. I'm talking about humans in general. We as humans today are so easily able to be persuaded to go somewhere else if it seems like a better situation. Like, I'm sure Luka would have had multiple chances to go to other teams, but I don't think he would have taken them. I feel like Luka was a Maverick for life, and he even said he didn't want to leave Dallas. But this man, Nico Harrison, fucking betrayed Luka. He betrayed him. He betrayed the city. He basically destroyed any credibility he had. The locker room wasn't fucking with him. He destroyed everything that revolved around Dallas. I mean, hell, this might be a hot take, but maybe Micah Parsons would have been traded if it wasn't for the Luka trade. Okay, I'm probably pushing it, but still. Now listen, even with the package and it ended up being like Anthony Davis and Cooper Flag, that's not bad. But again, there's so much more, and it's Luka. Like, I don't think anyone even thought to try to trade for Luka. And listen, bro, like I'm sorry, that trade still baffles me, and I will never forget how I felt during that moment. I'm pretty sure I have a video on my channel about it now, but still, it amazes me that Nico Harrison thought this was a good trade move. And I remember that people back then were thinking like, oh, maybe he's a scapegoat, or maybe it was Adam Silver who like put this whole thing together. And if it was literally anyone else, I maybe would have thought that, but it turns out Nico Harrison is one of the most incompetent fucking people I've ever seen. So no, I think Nico genuinely thought it was a good idea. I think he thought, yes, I'm going to trade for an old guy in Anthony Davis, or I should say Anthony Day-to-Day Davis, which I'm pretty sure he's fucking injured right now. I'm going to check. If he's injured, I'm actually going to laugh. Oh my fucking God. This guy has been out since October 29th and I had no idea. This fucking guy, bro. Yeah, Nico Harrison, they got it. Oh God, I probably can't say that. Listen, in conclusion, there was really no point to this video other than to tell you about why Nico Harrison deserved everything that he's gotten, and also simply to laugh at the man. I would never wish anything bad on a person just because of basketball, but I think every person in Dallas would say the complete opposite. So listen, I guess as the final thing I would say to you guys is, you might think that your life sucks, and it might, but I promise you, I genuinely promise you, it is going to get better. Unless your name is Nico Harrison, then rot in hell, you old fucking